Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this brand new series where we are highlighting a book by Dr. Daniel Brubaker about a example of corrections that were done to early Quranic manuscripts. I'm your host, Al Fadi, and with me here to continue this discussion and dialogue, Dr. Jay Smith. Welcome back.
Well, it's good to be here. It's terrific to be able to do this with you. Listen, it's always fun because not only this is material that I've been using and I've been working on. My goodness, I started working on this in 1994. So we're talking about we're talking about 25 years ago. So for 25 years, I've been working on this kind of material. But more importantly, since 2014, these specific let's look at the manuscript. Let's put up on slide to look at what we're talking about. These are the 6 major manuscripts that we introduced back in 2014 when Dan Brubaker's material first went public because of the fact his doctoral thesis had just been finished. This next slide here, you have the Topkapi, which is on the left, the Samarkand, which is on the right. Those are probably the 2 most famous ones, the ones Muslims like to go. As long as I've been working in 25 years with Muslims, they have always told me, including Shabir Ali, that these 2 were complete and unchanged.
And they're also the claim that they're both part of the Uthmanic basically distribution copies that he made.
Uthmanic Razm, the Uthmanic Mushaf, as they call them.
That's correct.
Which here are 2 others. This is the Ma'il, which is in London, and the Petropolitanus, which is in France. Just as we're going through them, the Ma'il is dated to, some would date it to the early 8th. Others, like Dr. Martin Ling's, dated to the late 8th. Nonetheless, it's 8th century. The Petropolitanus is early 8th century. Let's look at these last 2, and this is the Husseini on the left, which is in Cairo. It's a monumental text because it's so huge. And then, of course, the Sana'a, the one that you're working on, which is probably the most exciting. I just want to give you a quick look at that. Just look at that one on the right there, Sana'a. And you notice that yellow mark that's there.
That's right, yep.
That's in the last episode we were talking about, or 2 episodes ago, we were talking about how you put decorations, and that's how you can date it. One of the reasons why they can date the Sana'a manuscript. On the right side of the page, that is dated to 705. On the left side of the page, you can see the script is different.
That's right, different scribe.
Different scribe,
That's
and
right.
According to people like Dr. Gerard Puyn and Dr. Elizabeth Puyn, 2 husband and wife, who both have their doctorates, who have probably done more study on this manuscript than anybody else, they date to the left side of the page to about 50 to 60 years later. So
That's
even
right.
between those 2 pages, Surah 19 and Surah 22 on the right, Surah 20 begins on the left,
Yeah.
a much, much later date.
And people can see, the number even of lines is different, basically.
The type of script is different, and that's how
The
we
margin, on the top and the bottom.
This is an
and-
example how you
Yes,
date scripts,
that's
just
right.
by how the script changes.
right.
Now, I want to highlight these 2 different scholars. Here's the first one, Dr. Ekbeladin. Let me just put his picture up here. And you can see him there. That's Professor Dr. Ekbeladin Ihsanoglu, who is from Turkey. He, along with Dr. Tayyar Atakulic, who is pictured there, back between 2002 and 2007, they were the ones that looked at these 6 major manuscripts and came up with their conclusions in 2007. I got the English translation of that in 2013. And they are the ones that have said clearly that none of these manuscripts are from Uthman.
That's
Not
correct.
one of them.
That's correct.
Nor are they copies.
In their introduction, I have these copies myself. In introduction, they're very honest about it. They'll tell you
Al-Musaf
that.
Al-Sharif is the book that they published.
right.
You can get PDFs of it. You cannot buy the books in itself anymore because they're completely out of print. We have one at Fander in London. I know that Dan Brubaker has one in his library.
Right.
So they were able to get it quickly so that we can look at it. And so the entire Topkapi is there in that Musaf al-Sharif. But they talk about these 6 major manuscripts, and they make claim after claim. It was Tayyar Atakulic that first exposed to the world that the Topkapi has 2,270 of these manuscript variants.
Correct.
So these are the variants that we're going to look at. Now, Dan Brubaker, when he came out with his thesis, doctoral thesis in 2014, if you look at the next slide, he noticed that there were 7 types of consonantal variants, not kirat, not ahruf. He was very clear. This has nothing to do with vowelizations. This has nothing to do with diacritical marks because there were no vowels. There was no dots in these early manuscripts.
Correct.
And he found these 7 different types of changes. Let's just look at them real quickly. And this is a review of what we did last year. The first one were insertions. What does he mean by that?
Where a word is inserted. I mean, for instance, let me try to show people what is going on here. Just take a look at what I'm going to circle, right? This word 7, by the way, Muslims believe in 7 heavens. Well, this word 7 is inserted. And notice what's going on. It's inserted, it's clearly inserted, different writing style.
Okay. And it's also a thinner nib.
That's right.
We're going to actually unpack that. We're going to be looking at one of them because those are one of the 20.
And look here, Ar-Rahim, the same thing. The word is different. And you can tell they erase something and they put something on top of it with a different also pen, a different writing style.
Okay. Now are erasers. What are we talking about here?
And here's what we mean by erasers. As the word says, they erase something. You can tell right here, something erased. Right here, something was erased. Right here, something was erased. Those are very damaging, Jay. Why?
These are more damaging than insertions. And the reason is very simple. Insertions, you could say, well, they just were lazy or they were inept or they were in a hurry.
Or someone came after them and corrected
and they
it.
realized, hold on a minute, I've missed this word. I can stick it up in there. That's what we call scribal error. And that you'll find in biblical text, you'll find it in any archaic text. That's quite normal. That's not really that damaging. It doesn't mean it wasn't there at the beginning. Whatever they were copying from is probably there in the original. Right. We don't have any of the originals, so we just assume that they made a mistake. So that's all. But erasers, if you erase something, that means it was there. That it was an addition that shouldn't have been there.
That's right. And let me elaborate further on the damage that this can cause. It was there for a while. There is a reading or 2 or 3 that evolved out of it. There's schools that believe it should have been there. And now somebody came in and decided, no, we're going to take it out.
In fact, let's go to the next one because the next one, as you see, here are erasers where they've written over top of it. Talk about damage. They're trying to correct it, and they're not, and you can see they have erased it to try to censor it, and they've written it in some cases, like the middle one.
Look at this. It's very clear.
It's in a different color.
I mean,
they're not even trying to excuse it.
And right here, that something was erased and written in different color. Look right here. You can see something was erased and they used something extended, basically.
So these are really damaging because erasers, this is a censorship. And as we're now finding, these are standardization. This is standardization. We're going to show the conclusions of that, and I'm going to come to conclusions as we unpack.
And here's what we mean by standardization. There has been a process to standardize that reading, which means it took a while. It's a progressive process. At some point later, they decided how to standardize it.
Now let's look at the next one because here you have overwriting without erasers. They're not even bothering to erase it. They're just writing over top it. So you can see the undertext and the upper text.
This one is very clear. Totally different writing style, and it's written over something. So in fact, this one right here is kind of interesting one. You look at an entire verse that was inserted basically on top of something else. The whole writing style is totally different. This is mile. The other one is just regular.
Okay, so there an entire verse has been changed. Now let's look at the other real damaging one are what we call coverings. Why are coverings damaging?
Covering damages the same thing as erasures. You have decided that there is something shouldn't be read, and you want to ensure that you put a piece of leather or material on it, maybe for the intent to even rewrite something on top of it, as the case. Look here. This is kind of like a patch, if you wish, that was put in there. A patch that was put in there.
Take a look at the middle one. How many do you count there?
A lot of them. I mean, you can't even tell what's going on. In fact, the words have been butchered. You can't even make up a word anymore.
I count 7 different coverings on just one page.
And Jay, here's what's so important about this. If it was damaged, they could have thrown it away, right? Or washed it off. But no, they realize they're stuck with what they have. They have to preserve it. Now they have to make corrections.
Hold on to that thought because that's going to be hugely significant when we come to conclusions as to why they didn't just wipe it off and write over top.
That's right.
You'll see why, and that's because of what these manuscripts are and the importance of these manuscripts. And we're going to, well, I'm not going to get into, I don't want to do it because I'm going to steal my thunder. So let's go to one more, and this is selective coverings overwritten. Here is exactly what you did say. They're covering it, and then they're writing over top of it.
And let me help people see. See this red? Of course, over time, it turns into this color. So something was here, and then they wrote on top of it. The same thing here. You can see something was here and wrote on top of it. So that's what's going on.
So these are intentional. They're not trying to, they don't care who knows that they're doing this.
Absolutely.
They're not trying to hide this.
And you can see the ink is darker, meaning it's newer. and the style is different.
It's also thicker.
It's easy to deduct these things.
And in some case, an entire word has been covered over and only two letters
Right.
are replacing it.
And I like this one, for instance. They stretch the word or the letter because they want to cover up
as much space as possible.
Exactly.
One, and this will be the last one then, the tapings. Now, let me just, if you could just point to the central one, look at the taping at the top there.
Right here, you can see the tape is right here.
When Dan saw this, he said, well, maybe there's a damage. Maybe this is just a damaged piece. That's why they've tipped it. But he looked on the back side, and that's the bone below it, where the square is that he superimposed there. He put that square
that's
there.
Right
and
here.
now you're showing it. That is the back side. You can see there's no damage there whatsoever.
Exactly, because if there was damage, this is the back of it, then the damage would have went through.
That's right. So it's obviously they are trying to cover something in the top part there. When you look on the left one, you can see a taping right at the very top.
And this one is very obvious. I mean, you cannot miss it. There's writings, all of a sudden you have a gap. I mean, you can spot it immediately.
Yeah. In fact, I see 1, 2, 3 on that particular page that we're focusing on. Right. So these are the 7 different types of corrections that Dan came up with, and this is what we introduced back. Well, I introduced it publicly when I did my debate with Dr. Shabir Ali in 2014.
Wonderful.
What I like to do now is to start to go into Dan's book.
And I think we need to, give a teaser about how we're going to handle it in the episodes to come.
Yeah, what we want to do, and we've asked, in fact, Dan is right behind us. Please go and buy this. You can get it on Amazon.com or Amazon.co.uk. Get it. It's very small. It's nothing more than a teaser to introduce what's going to be coming later on, because he's going to be producing 4,000 of these, and this is going to be an academic tome. But just to get people to understand the significance of what is yet to come, Dan has decided to put this up initially, and that's why we're helping him out by actually unpacking each one of these. We want to show each one of the 20 variants and the 21st. So actually there are 21, but the 20 that he focuses on, then there's one more as an addition to give another example, one by one by one.
Exactly, and we want people to benefit from that as well, because we're going to take our time to explain to them the correction and also what does that mean, basically.
Now, let's go ahead and let's start with the very first one.
Very good.
So let's look at the slide.
Take it away.
We can see there, this is called the Topkapi manuscript, the one that we've introduced before. This is the one that's in Istanbul at the Topkapi Palace in Turkey. It is called the Musaf al-Sharif, and it is from Surah 9, verse 72. Go ahead and read the Arabic at the top.
This is the Arabic transliteration saying, وَرِضْوَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ.
And I'll do the translation. And Allah's good pleasure is greater. That is the great triumph. Now, in the verse in the Topkapi now reads, it is. Can you see it there? Look at the green arrow. Can you see what it's pointing to?
So this is what it is. I mean, I'm going to show people what I mean by that.
So it's a huwa that's been added.
So this huwa right here is this one right here.
So it's been added to the text. They're not even trying to hide it. It's very clear. It's been added at a later time.
And which is this one.
Okay. What is it that and why did they have to add this?
Well, I mean, now you're indicating something specifically.
You're standardizing it.
Exactly.
Standardizing it to what?
To what we
this
have
one right here that I'm
our
holding
hand,
up right now in my hand. They're standardizing it to this text.
So it's done backward.
So this text here and here was chosen from a student named Hafs.
That's right.
Who died in 796. The committee there in
1924
Cairo realized, and to understand, remember, let's do a quick review. Back in 1924, the Department of Education in Cairo, just the city of Cairo, realized that the students were they were trying to have standardized tests, and that the students were giving different answers to many of the questions, because many of the questions on the Quran, they were saying, what does this verse say and what does it mean? When they were writing, this is what it says and this is what it means, each student was coming up with different writings and different meanings, and they couldn't standardize the text. So they realized we can't do this because we're talking about different Qurans with different meanings.
Correct.
So therefore, they had to ask this committee there in Al-Azhar to standardize one of these texts. And that's why this committee took a student who died in 796 named Hafs, who lived in Kufa. They took his as the standard text.
Correct. And here's what that means. It's a human intervention that decided what that earlier should have read.
So these are a committee in Al-Azhar University in Cairo standardizing only one Quran for just the city of Cairo. What happened to all the other Qurans in Cairo that were not part of that standard? Do you know what happened? Let me tell you.
You want to take a guess? Burned?
Gabriel said, no, that's what they did with Uthman. Yeah. They took them out into a boat and they sunk them in the Nile. They actually sank them in the Nile. This is, I kid you not. They tried to censor them by sinking them. Now, they're still in the Nile today. They're still down there. You can probably pull them back. You don't need to. How can you think that by sinking them in the Nile, that's going to destroy the problem? Because even today, Hatun Tash is able to find 31. Did I say 23? 31 of them.
Because obviously not everyone is going to give up their copies.
Oh, you've got to go to Morocco. You've got to go to Jordan. You've got to go to Yemen. That's the 3 countries she went to find just the ones they're available in the marketplaces. But in Cairo, at least, they try to sink them to get rid of them. See, when Muslims don't like anything in the Quran, when they find differences, they either burn them, or they sink them, or they wash them off. Wash, sink, burn. Wash, sink, burn. That's what Muslims do. Have we ever done that with the Bible?
No. You know,
we don't have this problem, do we?
Exactly, and this is why this series is going to be extremely powerful, because, as Dr. J. Smith mentioned earlier, when you open the Pandora's door for us and you begin to say you have a perfectly preserved book that is uncreated, that is identical to a copy in heaven, similar to a copy that was revealed 14 centuries ago, similar to the Uthmanic recension, similar to what we have in our hand today, you have given us an ample opportunity to play this game all day long, because what we have here are Islamic sources, are manuscripts of the Quran. Unless if you deny them all. If you want to deny all of them, that's fine. Unless if you want to change your strategy, that's fine. But when you say these kind of things, that's what we're left with. This is a teaser, and in the episodes to come, we'll begin to take a look at those one by one. Thank you, Dr. Smith. And I'm excited really to do this with you. Until we meet again, have a blessed day. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Also, hit the bell so that you don't miss future videos. And please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Sira International. And together we can introduce Muslims to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Thank you.